Caffeine. Today we're going to be doing episode number 2 of our Coffee 101 series, where we focus on coffee processing methods. Now, if you've ever gone to a specialty coffee roaster's website, including ours, coldbloodedcaffeine.com, you may have come across some terminology that might not be familiar to you, such as natural, washed, or honey. Now, those 3 terms are all processing methods, of which there are many, but those are the 3 primary processing methods that farmers use to take raw cherries and get them into a form that is roastable and able to be packaged for consumption. So we'll go through each of those different processes, natural, washed, and honey, today. What won't be discussed today are some of the more advanced processing methods or the newer processing methods that you may be aware of. The first processing method that we're going to discuss is called natural processing, or also called dry processing. This is thought to be the oldest method of coffee processing, and it involves taking the whole cherry once it's picked, placing them on raised drying beds or on brick patios, and letting them dry for a certain amount of time. Once the cherries are placed onto the raised beds, they are turned regularly to prevent molding or over-fermentation of the coffee. The drying process tends to take about 10 to 14 days, and they're targeting about 11 to 12% moisture content of the beans to determine when the processing is completed. Once the beans have been dried, they're then mechanically removed from the skin and the fruit, and then they're stored or rested until it's time for export. Naturally processed coffees are common in areas of the world where water is not readily available, such as Ethiopia and regions of Brazil. And due to the process of the coffee sitting inside the cherry for an extended period of time, the coffee itself tends to have more of a fruity flavor to it than some of the other coffees that we'll discuss. Common flavor notes for naturally processed coffee include blueberry, strawberry, and honey. The flavor profiles of natural processed coffee are often compared to profiles of red wine. Natural coffees tend to roast a little bit hotter than their equivalent washed or honey processed coffees, and therefore they're a little bit more challenging to roast for the coffee roaster. The second type of processing method that we're going to discuss today is the washed process, also known as the wet processed coffee. This is the most common coffee processing method used within the specialty coffee industry. After being picked, the cherries are placed into a depulping machine to remove the majority of the fruit and skin from the beans. The beans are then placed into large wash tanks for fermentation for 24 to 72 hours. The depulped beans are then dried on raised beds or brick patios, similar to the natural processed coffee that we discussed earlier. The wash processed coffees have a natural brightness and acidity to them, and if we compare the natural processed coffees to red wine, the wash processed coffees would be like white wine. Wash processed coffee flavor profiles look like milk chocolate, raspberry, and grapefruit. Many farmers choose wash processed coffee to reduce the number of defects within the processing method, as it's inherently more stable than naturally processed coffee. The third and final processing method that we're going to discuss today is the honey process. This method is common in Central American countries such as Costa Rica, El Salvador, and Nicaragua, and is a hybrid processing method between the natural process and the wash process that we discussed earlier. Similar to the wash processed coffees, the honey processed coffees are depulped immediately after being picked. However, the machine is left at a higher setting to allow more fruit to adhere to the beans. The beans are then taken to the drying racks or the brick patios similar to the natural processed coffee before the remaining fruit is removed. Honey processed coffees are often referred to by their color: black, red, yellow, or white, which refers to the amount of fruit that's left on the bean after the depulping. Black has the most fruit remaining and white has the least. Honey processed coffees can combine some of the best attributes of both natural and wash processed coffees, such as the sweetness from the natural process or the brightness from the wash process. I hope this video has helped you understand more about the processing methods of coffee. If you have any additional questions or comments, please leave them down below and we'll be happy to answer. Check us out on our website at www.coldbloodedcaffeine.com and stay tuned for the next episode in our Coffee 101 series. Thanks.